Many of us played through one of the 3 beta weekends and are still deciding which class to play, let alone which build in Diablo 4. And in this video today, I'll be continuing my series of theory crafting some early leveling builds for Diablo 4's launch. And today's class is our Odin Druid build. As just a quick disclaimer, these are of course theory crafted builds and will more than likely change once any balancing changes have been made on launch, which Blizzard has just announced will be coming. I'll first give you an overview of the build, then a per level breakdown of the skill choices, then close the video out talking about aspects and gear options. If this is your first time on my channel, the way I do things here is by front loading the info in my videos. You can decide if this is the video for you. Since this is a per level guide on which abilities to take, you can find the entire build linked in the description and pinned comment, as well as a per level breakdown in a Google spreadsheet below. Unfortunately, the site doesn't have a per level breakdown, so that's why that's in there in a Google Doc. You can quickly navigate to any part of the video that interests you the most using the chapters of both the timeline and the description. Lastly, please don't forget to follow me on Twitch, where I will be streaming Diablo 4 as well as plenty of other games. Let's get started here on my Druid leveling build for Diablo 4. So here is our build that you can see, the Odin build, where we'll be using Storm Strike as our basic with the core of Tornado, following through into Blood Howl as our defensive. And what we'll be really doing with this defensive is, even though we have Cyclone Armor as a really interesting storm defensive, Blood Howl is just so good. Even thematically, I wanted to kind of stick with Cyclone Armor, but just the flat maximum maximum life heal, as well as a kill to reduce the cooldown on this, it's just too good for me to want to pass up. So I really enjoy Blood Howl as a really strong defensive here for your Druid class. We also have some wolves, as Odin did have 2 wolf companions with him. I know he's typically known for his ravens, but you know what? We went with wolves in this build. Also, Hurricane is going to be our big spell to use alongside Cataclysm. So that's pretty much how our skill setup is going to look. What we're really going to be doing here is using a lot of crowd control effects. That's the big name of the game with the storm spells for Druid. We're going to be doing a lot of slow. We're going to be doing a lot of vulnerability. We've got minimal but still accessibility to immobilize, and we also have knockback. Knockback is going to be coming from our Cataclysm. We're going to slow things down with Enhanced Hurricane, as well as with Enhanced Tornado, and then we get Enhanced Storm Strike to give us some immobilization. There are some options for passives and other things that we'll talk about when we're going through the actual per level build, but because I think it's a kind of an oversight on Blizzard's end, where there are some spell or some passives that say they don't trigger with slow, it kind of does reduce a little bit of the utility or viability of this in the long term. I think that as a leveling build, this will be quite fun. I don't know how strong it'll be end game, especially when stacked up to stuff like earth damage, which seems to be so stun oriented and so heavy burst damage oriented. But we'll be doing a lot of these really cool crowd control effects, and there's a lot of really fun lucky hit mechanics that we'll be kind of teeing off of as we get into some of the passives for lightning, which we'll talk about when we get to that respective section. So we have a lot of fun things too as well. Every time we do damage, we heal, because that's how Circle of Life works. So a lot of really fun abilities. I think this is going to be a really cool build that once you really get going, you're just going to have lightning bolts everywhere. You're going to have tornadoes everywhere. You're going to have wolves howling. It's going to be a really fun, awesome Druid build. So let's get into that per level breakdown. So here we are. You can either follow along with the Google Doc, or just go with this raw with me. Raw dog these randos. So we're going to put our first point into Storm Strike, as well as Enhanced Storm Strike, as you would have imagined. I'm getting more and more nasally as my allergies kick in for the evening, but that's just going to have to happen. We then are going to go into Tornado, followed by Enhanced Tornado, which is going to do some fun stuff here. So each time you cast Tornado, you have a 20% chance to spawn an additional Tornado, which is quite lovely. And then lastly, we're going to get Primal Tornado. Enemies damaged by Tornado are slowed by 8% for 3 seconds, stacking up to 40%. Now, with this build, I originally had thought of going down Lightning Storm. And let's just talk about that real quick, because you might be thinking to yourself, I want to go down Lightning Storm instead. By all means, if you want to do Lightning Storm, do it. It is a really fun ability. How you have to kind of think of these two, if you think of them separately. When you cast Tornado, it's going to cost you 40 spirit. It's got an 8% lucky hit, which is abysmal, but 40 spirit, you're going to do 35% damage. It's going to happen. And then you get a guaranteed slow effect with Primal Tornado. That's important to all mention. When I look at Lightning Storm, the way Lightning Storm works, and if you didn't play any of the betas, the way this works is it channels, so you have to hold down right click, and it will do 1 bolt of lightning, followed by a second, 2, then 3 bolts of lightning, then 4 bolts of lightning, then 5 bolts of lightning. And then at 5 bolts of lightning, the 5 bolts of lightning will just randomly strike the ground and do damage to everything. It's a very fun, really awesome ability, and I personally absolutely love it. But you have to look at how the spirit cost works. So spirit cost is going to cast 15 per strike. Now that's not 15 times 5 when you're at 5 total strikes going down. It's every time a strike comes down, whether it's 1 lightning bolt or 5, it costs 5 or 15 spirit cost. So that stacks up, right? 15 to 30 to 45 to 60. And at 60, we're well over Tornado, right? We're already over Tornado at 45, up to 75. Now we've spent 75 spirit. We have 5 lightning bolts. And every time after that, it's only going to be 15 spirit to kind of keep that going. So you spend more spirit up front with Lightning Storm to then get a lower amount of spirit to keep it going. Versus Tornado, you're just holding down right click and it's casting 40 spirit every time it comes out. Now where this kind of gets dicey is Lightning Storm has no ability to guaranteed give me slow. When I have Enhanced Lightning Storm, which is important because this thing allows me to preserve the amount of lightning storms we've created, the amount of lightning strikes, for 4 seconds. So basically, I build to a step 5 stack, and this holds on to that 5 stack for 4 seconds after I'm done channeling. So I can basically move around, then channel again, move around, then channel again. It's kind of like the game of Lightning Storm. But then Raging Lightning Storm adds an additional lightning strike, and then Primal Lightning Storm has a chance to immobilize. So that's kind of one of the big things that made me want to go with Tornado over Lightning Storm, is that I'm guaranteed to get a slow effect added in, which is going to synergize with tons of passives. I know that was a very long-winded explanation, but I wanted you to understand why we're going Tornado over going Lightning Storm, which would thematically be way better for this build. Then, after we've done our Primal Tornado, we're going to go with Fierce Storm Strike. Storm Strike has a 50% chance to make enemies vulnerable. I mean, the cool thing here is Storm Strike is an ability that will spread out. So once you hit someone, it chains up to 3 surrounding enemies. So you have a chance to make them all vulnerable. That's always kind of nice. Get as much damage or vulnerability as you can. And this will synergize much later in the build. You will see. Now, after this, we have our defensive. So again, I've decided to go with Blood Howl here over Cyclone Armor because Cyclone Armor requires an aspect. And that aspect, I believe, is a drop aspect, meaning you have to find the actual legendary item with it in order for it to be particularly good. And Cyclone Armor just gives you 10% non-physical damage reduction. We can stack it all the way up to 5, and it still only gives me 14% physical damage reduction. It's not that great to me. It does have an active ability that knocks things back, and that's cool. And I can get other stuff in here. The enemies knocked back are now slowed, or every 10 seconds, I can get 30% DR for 2 seconds. Those things are great, but they're not necessarily reliable. And in a pinch, I can't rely on it to do anything other than knock things back. It's not going to heal me. And if they're knocked back, they're just going to slowly get back to me if they've got enhanced Cyclone Armor. Blood Howl, on the other hand, is just going to give me a flat 20% health in every 15 seconds. And then that cooldown is reduced by 1 second. So every time I kill something. So it's just a really, really, really nice defensive. It's really hard to get around. So we're going to be going with Blood Howl here into Enhanced, into Innate to give us some spirit generation. Now, what you're probably going to notice at this point is you are suffering from spirit loss in abundance. So we're going to really kind of play with that as much as we can. We're going to get Heart of the Wild, and then we're going to go ahead and get Wild Impulses here. Oh, no, sorry. Abundance. This is going to, basic skills generate 6% more spirit. So now we're at level 15, and we can start jumping into some of our other abilities here, like Wolves. Wolves is fun, and then Enhanced Wolves. So at this point now, we're level 14, and the Wolves are pretty much just going to be a nice little bursty thing here. It is a thematic choice, and I personally love the Wolves of the most of all 3 of the summons. An alternate choice you could go with is Poison Creeper, which is arguably a much better choice if we're thinking from a min-max perspective, but I'm going thematic, and personal preference is Wolves because they're fucking cool. But I've got a 3-wolf moon shirt, and I'm not even fucking around with you. So moving beyond that, we're going to go back into Abundance. We're going to bring this up to rank 2. And then we're going to put 2 points into Tornado. As I've said for all my other builds, those first 3 points into your core skill, you get the most damage out of them. The 2 points towards the end, you start to notice a little bit of diminishing return. So we're going to pick those up later in the timeline. So we're going to jump down now to Hurricane. So Tornado is a direct damage ability, in which case we focus something and the tornado goes out towards it and does the damage. If you remember Diablo 2, it's not like Diablo 2's Tornado, thank God. It actually does go towards what you click on. But it just goes in a straight line towards it. It won't seek it out or anything like that. That is an aspect we'll talk about later. Hurricane is, again, much like Diablo 2's Hurricane. So form a hurricane around you that deals 97% damage to surrounding enemies over 8 seconds. So that's our first point as we get into level 18. And then 19 is to enhance Hurricane, which is enemies who are damaged by Hurricane are slowed by 25% for 2 seconds. So we are really stacking up slow here. We have a lot of crowd comparing, crowd controlling effects going on, and that is lovely. Then our last one is Savage Hurricane. So enemies affected by Hurricane deal 20% less damage. The other one here that has a 15% chance to make them vulnerable. That's great and all, but like I said, this is a guaranteed they do 20% less damage. I quite like that utility a little bit more than the chance of a vulnerability. And really, Hurricane's going to stick like this until the 40s. We don't really touch it because putting points into it's not going to really increase the damage that much compared to other stuff that we can do. So after we've done that, we're going to come back up into Abundance and just give us the full 18% more spirit generation from our Storm Strike ability. Again, you're going to be probably a little spirit starved. Just kind of manage it the best that you can, because this is really going to help you out here. And then we're also going to jump back into Tornado and finish that off, bring it up to a full 5 points. Really get the most damage we can, because it doesn't do a ton of damage on its own. You really need to stack up the amount of times you're using it. So once we've done that, we're going to get a little fancy here. Let's find Wild Impulse. There it is. Aha. So now we get your core skills cost 3% more spirit. So this is going to cost a little bit more, but it does more damage now. And that is nice. We're going to come back to this in just a little bit, because now at level 25, let me double check. We are indeed, well, we're 24 going into 25. We're going to pick up Cataclysm. So a massive storm follows you for 8 seconds. Twisters knock back enemies and lightning strikes, wildly dealing 52% damage. It is a fun ability, and you are going to have plenty of additional crowd control effect. But our next 3 points are then going to go into Prime Cataclysm for the duration increasing by 2 seconds. So that base is from 8 now up to 10. And then a Supreme Lightning Cataclysm, which makes lightning strikes from Cataclysm make enemies vulnerable for 2 seconds. It's a guaranteed make enemies vulnerable. I quite love that. And then we're going to come back up here to Wild Impulse, put 2 more points into that, so that we're doing more damage with our Tornado, but it costs not even a whole ton more, right? 9% more. So it's not even going to cost 44 spirit. It's going to cost like 43 point whatever. So you're getting quite a little bit more damage out of this with not that much more increase of spirit cost. Outside of that, though, we need Ancestral Fortitude, which is... Where can I not find you? Ancestral Fortitude. Oh, there it is. Ancestral Fortitude for non-physical resistance, which is the same thing that we're going to be getting from Cyclone Armor, right? But we're not taking that. And then we're going to put all 3 points here into Vigilance. So you gain 15% damage reduction for 6 seconds after using a defensive skill. So basically now, whenever we trigger Blood Howl, it's going to give us health, it's going to give us spirit, and it's going to give us 15% DR for 6 seconds. And that's really nice. Now, if you've not seen Riker's video on breaking out all of the individual mechanics in the game, I strongly recommend it. But the way he talks about damage reduction is that damage reduction is done sequentially. So it just basically, if you have 15% damage reduction, then 50% damage reduction from another item, if you get a hit by something, it will reduce the damage by 15%, and then the remaining value then gets reduced by the 50%. So damage reduction is a very crucial defensive characteristic that you're going to need as you hit into the higher difficulties. We're only at 34 right now, or 33 right now. Yeah. So you should be playing on World Tier 1. Anytime you're leveling a character, play on World Tier 1, jump into the higher World Tier when you get into Nightmare. There's no reason to play on World Tier 2 unless you absolutely want the additional difficulty, but you'll be getting 20% more experience to level substantially slower. So I would absolutely skip out on that. So now that we've done that, we need Defiance, which is down here. There it is. So nature magic skills now deal 4% increased damage to elites. This does include bosses. It's quite nice. It is just simply, unfortunately, circumstantial. And then after that, we are picking up our capstone. We are ready. Let's get Perfect Storm. So storm skills that you cast grant 1 spirit and deal 15% increased damage when damaging a vulnerable, which you can see we're doing, immobilized, which we can do with Storm Strike, or slowed enemy, which we're doing quite a bit with both Tornado and Hurricane. So we have lots of ways to do these things, and it is quite awesome. So that's all set up. We're going to jump back up here to Defiance, and we're going to go to Circle of Life, get 3 points into that, so that nature magic now basically heals us. So all of our magic spells, because they consume spirit, they now heal me for 3%, which is lovely. And we're going to jump back into Defiance and get those final 2 points, so that we're just doing more damage to bosses and elites. It is circumstantial, like I said, but it's still pretty nice because you are going to be able to hunt those bosses and elites a little bit easier. We're going to come back up now after we've done Defiance, because everything at this point, the build is complete. We're just filling in some passives and having a little bit more fun to boost some of the already present synergies that are here with the build. So we're going to put 2 points into Hurricane. Much like we said before, right? Those first 2 points are going to give us the most benefit. We'll come back for that a little bit later. And then we're going to jump into some of our lightning passives. The first one is Elemental Exposure. So it's important to note that a lot of this comes into Lucky Hit. Every single skill has its own Lucky Hit capability. I have a video on it. People have explained this plenty of times across the internet right now, but let me just quickly show you. Hurricane, for example, has a 21% chance to Lucky Hit something, which is different than a critical hit. Cataclysm has a 62% chance to Lucky Hit, which is absolutely glorious. So, Elemental Exposure of 1, so your storm skills have up to a 10% chance to make enemies vulnerable for 1 second. It's not that awesome. We're just doing it to open up a gate into Endless Tempest, because now we're going to get a 15% increase to the duration of both our Hurricane and to our Cataclysm, and then to Bad Omen. So Lucky Hit up to a 30% chance when dealing damage to a vulnerable, which we're going to do lots of, immobilize or stun enemy that a lightning bolt also hits, dealing 55% damage. So now you just got lightning bolts cascading all over the place from your already rampant Lucky Hit from Cataclysm. So it should be a lot of fun coming out of that. Once we've done Bad Omen, though, we're going to put 2 more points into Hurricane, just kind of fill that out, get a lot of damage from there. And for our wolves, you've got a choice. You can buff up your wolves and make them super strong, but I'm going to use the wolves as a bit of utility in this build because they're just kind of what I want to do. So we're going Ferocious Wolves, so that Lucky Hit, your wolves attacks have up to a 10% chance to fortify you for 5% base life. They already have a 50% Lucky Hit, which is actually quite nice. So we're going to take that and we're going to go over here to Defensive Posture, increase the amount of Fortify you gain from all sources by 5%. It's not crazy substantial. The big thing here we want is Nature's Resolve. 15% chance now when struck to fortify you for 4% base life. So whenever you're being struck, you have a chance to get 4% base life for fortify, which is quite lovely. It's just another defensive layer in your repertoire. And the last 3 points are going to go into Charged Atmosphere. So now every 12 seconds, a lightning bolt hits a nearby enemy, dealing 45% damage. Again, you just have lightning bolts cascading all over the place, as well as hurricanes and tornadoes. It's just really an awesome thematic build, and I think you're going to have a lot of fun with this. So now that we've got everything set up, let's go over our gear, our skills, our aspects, and of course, I think they're called Spirit Boons. Let's take a look at the Spirit Boons. Yeah, the Spirit Boons. We're going to start this section now talking about our Spirit Boons, actually. You can see our skills too, pretty much everything we were just talking about. But our Spirit Boons, you have these all set up for you. So our first one is going to be for the deer. It's going to be Gift the Stag, just to gain 10 max spirit. Then we have Eagle, and we get to choose. One of these can have 2 boons. The rest have to have 1 if they don't have the 2, obviously. So for Eagle, we're going to choose Scythe Talons to gain 5% increased crit strike chance. And then we're going to get Avian Wrath to help out with 30% crit strike damage. And as we jump here into Wolf, we're going to get Calamity, extend the duration of ultimate skills by 25%. So this makes our Cataclysm, which had a base of 8 seconds, be a far better one, right? So it's increased by 2 seconds because of its enhanced Cataclysm. And then this is going to increase it by 25%. We have another ability that's going to also increase its the Hurricane and Cataclysm duration, right, by 15%. So in total, it's getting like 35% more duration, which is just quite nice. Then lastly, we're going to get Overload for our Snake. So Lucky Hit, dealing lightning damage, has up to a 20% chance to cause the target to emit a static discharge, dealing 20% lightning damage to surrounding enemy. So we have plenty of Lucky Hit abilities going on in this build. For gems, we're going to go with Sapphire, so that 12% additional crit strike damage to crowd-controlled enemies. You clearly have tons of those to choose from. Armor for 4% max life. And jewelry here going 8% res to all elements. A lot of people have also been going with skulls because of the nature of how armor works. Armor, if you come over here into stats, non-physical damage taken is partially reduced according to your armor contribution. And this armor contribution says 50%. It is not a 1-to-1. You do not get 50% of the elemental damage done to you halved or anything because of your armor. It's just not like that. It has diminishing returns on a scale. It's a very convoluted system. I'm just going to choose all res until I better understand the system once I get into the game. I think it's kind of something that everyone can apply to from their previous knowledge of the last two Diablos. For our aspects, though, we have Eluding Aspect, which is my go-to here for a defensive one. Becoming injured while crowd controlled grants you unstoppable for 4 seconds. This effect has a 40 to 20 second cooldown, and you simply get it by going to Caldera Gate in the Fractured Peaks, which is just right in the starting location for you, or pretty quick and easy for you in Act 1. Then we get both Expectant and Edge Masters. Edge Masters we're putting on an amulet because that amplifies this by 50%. So it does a little bit more here, right? So skills deal up to 10 to 20% increased damage based on your available primary resource when cast, receiving the maximum benefit while you have full primary resource. Now you get this in Skosglen, which is Act 2. So you'll get this pretty quick in the game for yourself, and you'll have your high spirit generation, hopefully by that point, to really get as much advantage as possible. Then we also have Aspect of the Expectant. Attacking enemies with a basic skill increases the damage of your next core skill by 5 to 10%, up to 30%. So storm striking the crap out of everything is going to enable you to do a lot more damage with your tornadoes, basically what that means, and also getting that in Skosglen as well. Then Aspect of the Umbral is unfortunately here in the Dry Steppes, so that's Act 3. Restore 1 to 4 of your primary resource when you crowd control an enemy. Yeah, so that's going to be a lot. You're going to do that a lot. That's going to happen all the damn time. The last thing you need to know is Storm Chaser's Aspect. Now, this is not a codex aspect. This is a drop aspect. So wherever you get this, wherever it drops for you, use it. If it drops on a ring, on an amulet, on pants, on gloves, I don't care where, use it for as long as you possibly can, because this will allow your tornadoes to seek targets rather than just simply going in a straight line. That is so advantageous. And you can rip this aspect off, but if you rip it off of an item, just know that you can only place it on one item. It doesn't rip off into a bank that you can limitlessly pull from. You're basically taking this as think of it as a physical aspect that you're placing in a bank and then taking that and putting it on something else. You use it and lose it, basically, to quote 40-year-old virgin. So you've got that going for you. Those are all of your aspects. Those are your gems. Those are your boons. Those are your skills. So hopefully this build works out for you pretty well. The Odin build. Now, I know a lot of people probably have some other min-maxes builds that are out there for Druid, and by all means, go ahead and go with them. I'm choosing this build because this is the build I would play if I was playing Druid on launch. I'm unfortunately playing Necromancer, but now I want to play Druid because of this goddamn build. And that's a big thing. If this is your first time playing through the game, don't min-max your approach. You're playing on World Tier 1. It's going to be like eating baby food, which is not a good experience. I don't know why I made that analogy there. But still, have fun with it. Play any build you want. Try different skills. If my skill tree, you really want to go with Lightning Storm, then go with Lightning Storm. If you really want to try out Cyclone Armor, then do that. Or you want to try out Earth and Bulwark, do whatever you want to experience the class in the best way. If you do that, you'll better understand why the skills are in the spaces they are in this build, or why you might want to change this build to better suit how you want to play. It's my biggest and best takeaway for you for Diablo 4 because it definitely seems to be optimized to allow for more colorful build styles rather than just simply choosing the 4 or 5 meta cookie cutter builds that everyone chooses. I think it's way more applicable to a higher amount of build variety. So have as much fun as you can. If you have any questions, by all means, go ahead and let me know in the comment section below. But have a good one and take care.